Everyone, I would like to invite you to the Table of Grace.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty, the plate's always full, and it's never too late to come and be filled with love never ending. You're always welcome to the table of grace.
Hello, I'm Melissa Hilton. Welcome to Table of Grace, production between Radio Guadalupe and Belize to the Bone, where we talk to people whose feet are planted in faith and has been touched by the grace of God. Today, we have with us Mr. Michael Kemp. He was involved in music ministry at Holy Redeemer, St. Ignatius, and St. Joseph parishes. He also taught at Holy Redeemer School, where I can attest that he has touched a lot of lives. He also taught at St. John's College, and now he's studying to become a diocesan priest. So please, stay tuned after the break. Join us back where we will talk to Mr. Michael Kemp.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty, the plate's always full, and it's never too late.
The Table of Grace.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty, the plate's always full, and it's never too late to come and
Hi Melissa, good to be here with you.
It's been a long time.
I know. It's been a couple of years since I left Holy Redeemer, and we used to be good friends there. And I went on to pursue other things at St. Joseph Parish and teaching. And you're right, now I'm a seminarian for the Diocese of Belize and Bomapan. So it's an exciting time.
I know. I can imagine. I know a lot of your students are glued to the TV right about now.
Yeah, of course. Since I've been back to Belize over Christmas and for the summer so far, I meet a lot of them and they ask questions about what is the seminary, what is
What are you
diocesan priest, and are you going back to teach and stuff like that. And it's all good. It's good to inform people and to let them know about what vocation really is, and especially how we're here on a special day in terms of a special vocation on fatherhood. It's good for people to know that fathers aren't necessarily, biological, that there are spiritual fathers out there, and I'm studying to be one.
To be one of them.
Yeah.
Michael, I got to know you as a teacher. How was that? Teaching students that I know it was, being a teacher in a whole is an amazing job. You've get to father 30-odd, 90-odd, I don't know how many students. How was that for you?
Well, I would say that it was a big part of my formation. I think I learned as much from these students as when I was teaching them. And over the past 6 years, you are right, over the years, I think totaling, I probably taught over at least seven or 800.
Wow.
And you think about not the content that you're teaching, but more the life skills that you're teaching and how you try to get them to develop a character, which I think is very important, and that leads them into a certain spirituality. And I know in terms of my own discernment about the priesthood, as much as I felt that I was doing something good, I also felt that, God was guiding me to something more.
Yeah.
And so he was calling me to discern some more. So
I know your parish, your family parish is St. Ignatius.
yes.
How was it growing up? I know a lot of us keep saying, oh, my mother, my father. How is it for you?
Well, I think, looking at where I am now as a seminarian, being placed there at St. Ignatius, it just brought back a real flood of memories. When I got there the first weekend and I saw all these people who I grew up with, then I realized that, what, these aren't just regular people who attend the church. These people are my family, and I didn't see them for several years because of working at different parishes, but being back there was just like being back at home. And you realize that church isn't just like this idea that's out there and you attend once a week or something like that, but you are a part of a family, and we have that definition for church, that it is, the family of God. And so that's something that for me is very real, and I try as much to impart that to other people so they have that same feeling that you're not just a stranger out there or a statistic, you are a part of God's family, invited to the table. Yeah.
And that's what a lot of us needs to realize, that we need to go back to that statement where it says it takes a community to raise a child. We might say, oh, you're not my mom, you're not this, but you are a part of something, you are a part of a family. What made you decided to go into ministry, to go into priesthood?
I think if you would have asked me that question my first couple weeks in seminary, I would have told you that it was my decision, that I decided to leave teaching, I decided to, pursue a vocation. But in formation, you learn that it's not my choice. This has never been my choice. That God is the one who invites, and He calls, and I accepted that invitation. Now, in terms of discernment and formation, this is where I feel that God has led me at this time. And it's a process that is ongoing. So it was a risk. It was a risk leaving my job, leaving my family, leaving people I love to pursue, a vocation. But at the same time, a vocation means you fall in love. You just like when you get into a relationship, at some point you decide that you leave your parents' home to, to go and live, and you branch out and you have a family. You realize that that is what ministry is about, that you recognize God's call and the people God puts you to work along with, you and them, you fall in love with His people, you fall in love with the liturgy, you fall in love and find your place in the church. And I think that's kind of what has gave me that courage, to pursue.
I know a lot of your students, you taught both male and female, but I want to put an emphasis on the male. For them that are looking right now, who are like, oh, he used to teach me, he was my teacher, what would you, and they would be like, how do I know that this is my calling? What is it that I need to hear or to see? Or how do I open up myself to receive that call? What advice would you give them?
I would say that every Catholic young man or young woman, and not just Catholic, but every Christian person should spend some time trying to pursue and find out what your true vocation is. You see, every job that you have should be a vocation, whether it's to be a teacher or to be a welder or a mechanic. And the vocation is finding that God has given you that gift and has led you there. And I think too many times we become a bit selfish and we're like, well, I want to do something where I'll make money, or I'll do something where I have a certain amount of power and things like that. And truly thinking about vocation is seeing where I am happiest. Because sure, in terms of teaching, getting a salary and having things that you want, that doesn't necessarily equate happiness. And for me, I found that I would, sit down at the end of the month or the end of the day, and I would say, well, I feel that God is calling me to something more. And I think for every individual, they owe that to themselves, to ask that question, what more is God calling me to
do?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. You look at the different male out there, the different young men that we have, and they're saying, how could that bring me joy? It's something that young men, even young women, we question ourselves as that's what they're saying, but I don't see that. I don't feel that. That is something that we would have to open up our hearts to. Since you're here, I believe it's only for the summer that you're back. What are you doing? Are you working with any of the groups that you had previously, or you have anywhere that you're based?
I'm assigned at St. Ignatius. I'm assigned back home, and so I have a couple programs that I'm doing during the summer. But to answer your question, I think that in terms of like what more can make a person happy or fulfilling one's desires, you know, we can easily get caught up into instant gratification. You know, we live in a world where, like with Facebook, everything is about likes, you know, likes and comments, and one can get caught up into that type of popularity. But then there's an inner part of the spirit that yearns for more. Even people who don't necessarily acknowledge, you know, religion or acknowledge spirituality would say that, you know, beyond just working or beyond just making money, there is some void that needs to be filled. And then through prayer and through, you know, dialogue with others, even if it's not like a full-fledged spiritual director, just somebody you can talk to about what your issues are. Many times you realize that, well, I'm not satisfied.
Yeah.
And if I'm not satisfied, then I owe myself to seek out more, you know. And in our faith, we believe that seeking out more is found in Christ, who is the totality of all of these things, you know, that our desires then are channeled in a way that they can be filled, you know. And just like any other person, you know, sometimes you're there at the seminary or in the rectory, and you look around and you're like, well, there's no one here.
Yeah.
But you realize that in those moments that you get a consolation because, well, you're not really alone. God has given you all these people that you're ministering to, all these sons and daughters, so to speak. And, you know, in terms of the diocesan priests, you know, we are men on the front lines, meaning that when you call a parish, you know, we're there to go to the hospital to give the sacraments. We're, in most cases here, we manage schools, you know, so we're there for the people, and we feel, you know, fulfillment in that and a certain joy. You know, Pope Francis always talks about the joy that we should radiate, you know, as not just priests and religious, but also as seminarians as well, you know, that we are happy in this state of life that God has called us to. And if we're always, you know, miserable and have a sour disposition, then maybe we're not happy in terms of what we're doing.
Yeah.
So like, in terms of what I'm offering as St. Ignatius, we have 2 sessions. One on Wednesdays and one on Fridays. The one on Wednesdays is an introduction to Lectio Divina. And that's just a way of looking at the Sunday Gospel and trying to make the Word more alive in terms of our reflection on it. And then on Fridays, we have the other program that looks at Catholic morality from the Catechism. In your workplace, sometimes you might find people ask you, capital punishment, what do you think about that? And your first answer may be something very emotional or very personal, and then you realize, well, yeah, I'm answering like this, but what does the church actually teach on this issue? You know, and we profess the creed every Sunday. We say that we believe in the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church. So if we profess that creed, then we can't be making up morality as we go along. So, you know, it's a little just to whet the appetites of the people there at St. Ignatius. You know, when you're younger, your parents give you milk, you know, you get baba. But as you get older, you need meat, and you need protein, and you need substance. So in terms of our faith, it's trying to give people some meat to go along with your diet, right? Yeah.
When we come back, I would really like you to give us more insight on that, but we need to take a break, and when we come back, we will have more discussion with Mr. Michael Kemp and what he's actually doing this summer and who all can attend. So you don't want to miss that. return us back.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty. The plate's always full, and it's never too late.
The table of grace.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty. The plate's always full, and it's never too late.
Welcome back, and we have with us Mr. Michael Kemp, who went from being in music ministry to being a teacher, and now he's studying to be a diocesan priest. Mr. Kemp, it is said that since 1982, no Belizean has done this, and you're the first since then. What made you do that?
Yeah, since
History.
since 1982 actually, no guy from Belize City has studied for the priesthood, diocesan priesthood. We've had other vocations from Orange Walk and other different districts, but from Belize City itself, we've had nobody in the seminary since 1982. So it's a heavy cross sometimes to think about. But you know what made me do it? I guess you could say there's a poem that talks about the hound of heaven. You know, that there's this calling, or God seeks you out. And I can say in my life that has been the story. You know, I completed junior college. That's when I first started to think about a vocation. But at that time, things didn't work out. And so I started to teach. And, you know, I felt very happy in terms of teaching. You know, and then I got an opportunity to go back to St. John's and teach there. And, you know, a year passed, 2 years passed. And at some point, I sat down and I was like, well, maybe this is what life will be. But then you still have this kind of, you know, it starts off kind of small, and then it's like you pause. And then you're like, well, it's not giving me the fulfillment or the total joy that I would like. And so last year, you know, I had a conversation with the auxiliary bishop, you know, and he encouraged me and helped me along in terms of discernment. And then, you know, in March of last year, I applied, sent in my application to the seminary, and it was accepted. And then I got a response from them in June, which was like the end of the school year. I really didn't have much time to tell my students, you know, that I was leaving because they were done with exams. And so I think things got very real when I had to resign. And I gave my principal at that time the letter, and I told her I'm not returning. And, you know, as I said before, you know, gambles and risk, you know, it's involved in the pursuit of a vocation, and indeed the pursuit of love. You know, that there is a certain risk involved, but the reward is great, and you don't take the risk because you feel it won't work out. You have a certain courage, and so yeah, August 12th last year, I left and I went to Kenrick Glennon Seminary in St. Louis, and it was very different. You know, American culture, as much as we see it on TV and, you know, on the internet, until you're actually living it, then you realize the good things about it and also the negative things, you know. And my class, there's only 9 of us, and at one point I was one of the younger ones in my class until my birthday recently. Now I'm not one of the younger ones anymore. But, you know, all of us had jobs before. Like one of my good friends, he was a physical therapist.
Oh, wow.
Several of the guys are engineers, chemical engineers. You have chemists, pharmacists. You have all these guys who leave their careers, like what you're called to kind of pursue in the world, and they go and pursue more discernment. Now, you can't say that they're leaving it because they'll get a better salary. You know, that's just not true. You know, but they leave it because they feel probably the same way how I felt. And so, yeah, you are strangers there, but there's a certain support in knowing that all of you have a calling. And
Yeah.
that's nice to like be around people who, it makes you feel like, well, it's not only me.
You're not the odd one out.
I'm not weird. That other people also have this calling.
Why do you think that more men aren't drawn to being priests, to the priesthood?
I think a big part of it is we have men who lack commitment. I think you see it in marriage, you see it in family, and you definitely see it in terms of vocations. You know, our young men are really being raised in homes that they don't see that male role model who is committed. And so, just like in a marriage house, some men hesitate.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing in terms of religious life, minus the physical support that you have. You know, our support, yeah, is more spiritual and to be there with the people, but the reality is that it's a life where you know that there's a certain amount of independence with it, and so you have to be a responsible and committed individual. And the studies for it isn't like a year or two. It takes time.
How many years do you have to go and study before returning back and taking up a parish
Okay.
or
So in my case, I have 5 more years left.
Wow.
So when I started, it was 6.
Okay.
But guys who are like right out of high school, it would take them 8 years. Now we
Okay.
have a seminary here in Santa Elena where some guys do the first 2 years of college,
Mhm.
and then they'll finish 6 years as well.
Okay.
So it depends on where the person is in terms of philosophy, because you have to do 4 years of philosophy before you do any type of theology. And I think many people don't realize that.
So what if you study a specific trade,
Mhm.
you can still change that and go into the priesthood, but you will still need to take
The philosophy courses. And the
Okay.
philosophy courses, they lead you into an understanding of theology, but philosophy is different.
Okay.
Like many of my students thought that, oh, studying to be a priest, it would be the same stuff I was teaching them on sacraments and things like that, and I would kind of tell them, well, no, that's
There's more
not
to
it.
it.
Philosophy is farther than that. You know, you have logic and you have courses like that you have to take, and it is a challenge, you know,
Yeah.
but we meet the challenge, and you know, God gives us through the Holy Spirit the wisdom to, you know, pass the courses to our best and adjust to the school system there, you know, so it's different, but we have to be grateful to the Archdiocese of St. Louis. They give our diocese scholarships so we can study in their seminary. And if it wasn't for
Okay.
that, the diocese would have to find funds to pay for seminarians' education.
When your 6 years is over,
Mhm.
what happens then?
All right, at the end of the 6 years, well, the end of the 5th year, I will get ordained as a transitional deacon. Transitional deacon only like for a year, meaning that I'll function as a deacon, but it's not like a permanent deacon,
Okay.
like Deacon Lambert or Deacon Cal. I'll just function in the diocese and there in St. Louis for 1 year as a deacon, and then when I come back, I'll be ordained as a diocesan priest, as a parish priest, and right after that, I'll be assigned somewhere in terms of where I'll help out. I know
Do
you
you
would
get
be
a say? Do you get a say in where you go?
you'd be very happy if I'm assigned at a certain place, but you know, all of that is in terms of obedience.
Yeah.
The bishop, he is the one who has to say on that, you know. And as a seminarian, that's something that I'm learning too, what obedience entails and what the promises, you know, that we make, you know, chastity and poverty and obedience. Because, like, coming back for summer, you know, I got an email that I'm placed at St. Ignatius, and that's where I am, meaning that you realize that, yeah, your life isn't necessarily you just pick up and decide what you're going to
Yeah.
do, but there's a certain wisdom to that. It gives me less things to worry about. You know, if I'm just going to listen, you know, to a certain degree, life pretty much gets settled. Not that you're just going to be there, you know, being docile all the time, but yeah, it's all an adjustment. Yeah.
Two things that are coming to mind. One, how is it, can anyone go to what you're doing at St. Ignatius on Wednesday and Friday nights, I believe?
Oh yeah,
Or do they have to sign up?
any parishioner, any from any parish or really Lectio Divina and learning about morality are Christian things. So from any church, if they would like to come and learn more about how we read the scriptures or what our moral stances are and things, and the morality class is very nice because sometimes we get confused in terms of church teaching. For example, some of the other churches, they have their own teaching concerning capital punishment, and the Catholic Church has its own. And so, yeah, we might hear a different pastor or somebody else say, well, the Bible says this or the Bible says that. And some of us can say, oh yeah, that's true, the Bible says. Well, actually, we're a church that goes beyond the Bible. We have the catechism. We have other sources of morality. And so our answers aren't limited to, just fundamental Bible things. So it's good for people to be exposed to, what we actually teach about moral issues.
Yeah. The other thing that is coming to my mind is your family.
Mm-hmm.
What I know they're from St. Ignatius. You're back at St. Ignatius. How do they feel?
Oh, well, the parish family, they're all excited. I've always said that I probably have at least about 30 or 35 grandmothers. All these ladies who played such a huge impact when I was growing up. I kind of appreciate the fact that I spent so much time in my childhood there, serving for Mass, being a musician there, and then seeing these people again. And in terms of my nuclear family, my parents are they're happy that I'm helping out there. I think sometimes they would be more happier if they would see me at home a bit more. But that's a part of what life is now. And as I said, it's an adjustment. And if I could say something to a young person, is that religious life, being diocesan or a part of a religious order, it calls for men of courage, men and women of courage. You can't be weak, and that's not what the Holy Spirit calls you to. Calls you to be courageous. And so in terms of pursuing a vocation, I keep talking about risk, and we're called to that as Christians. Take the disciples, when they first heard that Jesus was risen, they at first didn't receive the news with much joy. They were kind of afraid, and they were wondering, well, if it's true. But no, Mary, when she heard the news, she was insistent on that, that I believe this.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think we're called as seminarians and as priests, whether it's diocesan priests or religious order priests, and consecrated sisters and brothers, that we're called to be out there in terms of what we believe, and not to be like locked up in a rectory. Yeah, And again, Pope Francis calls us to this.
I know your mom must be so ecstatic that you're doing this, because I know that most mothers, that's one of their greatest prayers. So I know her prayer is being answered right here along the way.
Oh sure, and it's one of those things where I give God thanks to from technology, with Skype and with WhatsApp and all of these things.
She doesn't forget how your face looks.
Exactly, it helps me to keep in communication and know what's happening. It helps me to check on my dogs. I have two dogs at home that I care about very much. Oh, and I always ask on Sundays when I Skype with them, let me see the dogs, Tor and Fluffy. Those are my dogs. So yeah, if
those
anybody who knows me, they would know that I have those two dogs. And the thing is, I think because people haven't really been in communication with seminarians for a while, or even like religious priests and nuns, sometimes we get an idea that they're somewhere up here and we're down there.
That's something that I want to ask you when we come back from this break. I want to ask, I won't give it away. We're taking a short break and we'll be right back with a lot of more questions for Mr. Kemp.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty. The plate's always full, and it's never too late.
The table of grace.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty. The plate's always full, and it's never too late.
Welcome back to Table of Grace with Mr. Michael Kemp. Music ministry, teacher, and now a diocesan priest in the making.
In the making. Yeah.
Before we went to break, I didn't want to give away my question, but students that you taught, your friends that you had prior to going, now in their heads they will be like, how am I going to relate to him? What am I to say to him? How am I to behave? How are they to behave? You see, why I ask that is because we've been raised with having respect for priests, for nuns, for elders and everything. And the ones who used to be like, yo, how, I know that's in their mind right about now. How am I going to relate to him now? What do you say to them?
I'll give you two stories to answer that. When I came back, it was May 14th, and I went to a mass at St. John's that the junior college was having at the end of their semester. Okay. And when I went there, I saw some of my past students, and a couple of them, they said, Mr. Father Kemp. And so I kind of laughed because I was like, well, I'm not a father yet. Yeah. I'm not a mister anymore. I'm right there in the middle.
Between.
And that's something that I take humor in it. I take humor in when I meet my old friends, especially the ones who get pretty uncomfortable. Like, for example, the ones who I know would like to give a good joke, and all of a sudden when they see me now, they get kind of pensive. Like, I kind of push on that, but it's like also a couple weeks ago, I went to Tavern, and I saw a former parishioner that I used to know at St. Joseph. And so I was there at the counter with some other friends, and she was like, Mr. Kemp, what you did do? Yeah.
That would have been the same thing.
Your reaction, no? And then I told her, oh, what am I doing here? I'll tell you right now. And then I told the bartender, just give me another Guinness. But the point is, we get to think of priests or people in authority or religious sisters or brothers as people who don't have a normal social life or something like that. It's not that you don't have a normal social life. I think a big part of it has to do with, one, the size of the country. It's very easy to identify a priest without having on this color or anything. People will know who you are. But at the second time, there's a certain openness that must take place, that people realize that, you're a priest, but you're a human as well. And you will enjoy going out for dinner, you'll enjoy, hanging out with friends and all the normal things that anybody who has a digestive system or anybody who gets thirsty would do. So I think it's a whole education, you could kind of call it, educating people about, what this life is about. And it's just the fact that you have an additional responsibility. And then when you're ordained as a priest, then that responsibility becomes even more, because you have an entire parish, in our case, that you have to take care of. And in some cases, you have two. And then you realize that, well, I don't have all that time that I used to have to socialize as much as I want. And it's not to become a scandal, You know, we have to always have that line between good, healthy socialization and just being out there being a scandal.
Yeah.
I would never want somebody to say, well, you know, I saw him sleeping out at BTL Park because he gone and he made stone down so much Presidente and, you know, he couldn't get up. Exactly. Exactly. You know, with social media and all of these things,
Yeah.
it calls for a certain responsibility. But at the same time, we are all, might sound a bit cliche, but we're all pilgrims on a journey.
Yeah.
And a part of being a pilgrim on a journey means that you meet people, you meet others on the journey, and you make friends. And it's those friendships that you hold on to because that's where God is present. You know, you people ask, well, how do I prove God exists? Well, look at the person beside you, man. You know?
You know, there's a song that I really like. I don't know what the name of the song is, but surprisingly, that's the only line of the song that I know. Tell me, how can I love Jesus when I've never seen his face? But when you say that, a lot of people will take you, oh, take a look, wow, take a look outside, look in the sky. That's how you would know he exists.
Yeah, you know, we can get very, you know,
Yeah.
with our theology up there, you know, and it doesn't have to be, you know, for example, the person who wants more courage. Let's say a person struggles with an addiction, you know, alcoholism. You know, the person has two choices. Person can say, well, you know, I'll go down all streets that don't have a bar, and that's fine. You know, the person will never take a drink because they walk down streets that don't have a bar. Has that person defeated that addiction? No. That person is still addicted. That person is just avoiding it. The person who has defeated an addiction would be the person who can walk down that street, walk down right by BTL Park that has all of those different places and make a choice that I don't have to do that.
Go in there.
And so that's where, you know, as a seminarian, or as priests and religious, that we're called to help to guide people to that there is nothing wrong with socialization. It becomes wrong when it takes over your life. It becomes wrong when it becomes an addiction. It becomes wrong when it becomes a scandal to your family.
Yeah.
You know, you have some men who, they get paid and they don't see their family until 2 days
When
after.
they're left broke.
Exactly. Some women who go to the casino, you know, they gamble, and, you know, you see them out there selling their wedding ring, and then you're like, well, something isn't right here.
Yeah.
So it's about moderation, it's about balance, and it's good for people to have others out there who encourage them to have that balance, that you and I can go, and we can have dinner, or we can go and sit down for a drink, or what you might like, a pina colada or something, and we can know where our limits are and be happy with that.
So between Mr. Kemp and Father Kemp, what is the proper word, the proper way that we're to address you?
Seminarian.
Seminarian.
That's the easiest one. Seminarian. Most people I know, and it's become a practice even before becoming a seminarian, they would just say Kemp.
Yeah, but
So,
you see, there's a
but
thing.
there's the terminology seminarian
but
to be
with
used.
Most of us,
Mm-hmm.
we are like, okay, he's studying to become a priest. Okay, Father.
Yeah.
That's the easiest thing for us to that comes to mind.
It's almost like this year going into a parish in the U.S. My second year of pre-theology, we work in a parish every weekend. And you know, as soon as you're in a parish and people see you, that's the first thing they say. So, Father. Yeah. Well, in their case, they wouldn't say Father like how we say, like Father. And then you're, yeah, but if you would correct everybody who does it, you'd be correcting all day. So the proper title would be seminarian, but people can.
But we still can't go wrong with saying Mr. Kemp.
Exactly, at this point, no.
Okay.
Mr. Kemp is fine.
It's still fine for the next 5 years.
For the next 5
For the
years.
next 5 years.
Then it expires. Yeah.
Is there anything that you would like to tell the public, tell your past students,
Yeah.
those whose lives you've touched?
Well, I think first I'd like to say Happy Father's Day. You know, I know my dad is watching. Happy Father's Day, Dad. I don't have to say your name because I'm junior, so it would just be repetitious. So happy Father's Day, Dad. I love you and thank you for always being there in my life. And to all fathers out there, really, you have a vocation that is blessed. And always remember Saint Joseph, who is the patron of fathers. Saint Joseph had, one of the best vocations in life. He was able to be the foster father of God Himself incarnate in Jesus Christ. And so happy Father's Day. And to past students watching and just people who are watching in general, I'd like to say, think about what vocation is. The world, the media, there are a lot of distractions, yes, but in the silence of your heart, there is a movement. And don't ignore the movement. Follow the movement. Be consistent with it. Find somebody to talk to. Pray about it, and I am sure that God will show you what you're supposed to be doing with your life. So think about vocations. Yeah.
So instead of saying the next 5 years, instead of saying, oh, Father Michael or Father Kemp, will be saying Father Junior.
You can say Father Junior. That's fine.
Seminarian Michael Kemp. It was my pleasure and my honor to have had you here with me. As you know, we became very good friends a long time ago.
Yeah.
Well, we're not that old.
Exactly,
We're not that old. We're still young.
Yeah, I only have a few gray hairs that I hide, but not much more than that.
Well, I keep to say that I don't have any.
Yeah.
But they come with wisdom.
Oh, well.
The more wiser you get, the more you have.
That's okay. I don't need to be so wise. Yeah.
It really was a pleasure talking to you, not just because of the fact that you're studying to become a diocesan priest, but the fact that I'm being honest here. It's the first friend that I've had that is studying to become. So some of the questions that I've been asking is like, how will I greet you when I see you in the next 5 years? How will it be?
As long as you don't see a bishop. If you see you see a bishop, you're gonna get me in trouble.
It's so funny that that will be your next step. I'm already.
Oh my gosh.
So that will be in my prayers for you.
Oh my.
I hope I'm not putting you in a very large shoe. But that's what I'll pray for you.
We'll put it this way. The Holy Spirit moves when it moves, how it moves, and we just have to be open to it.
And ready for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching Table of Grace this week with us. It really was an honor to have had a friend, someone who has touched the lives of many Belizeans, many. I can't wait for the next 6 years to come around when he'll be back with us. And like I said, I'm taking it to the Lord in prayer. Miss Seminarian Kemp has touched our lives, and he will continue to do so for many years to come. Please continue your day, waking up in the morning, thanking the Lord for what he has done for you and what he will continue to do for you. And like he said, don't take anything for granted. Keep your hearts open and your minds with you, and just be ready for whatever the Lord says, and take it with grace and with style and with faith. For that, I'll see you next time. Bye.
At the table of grace, the cup's never empty, the plate's always full, and it's never too late to come and be filled. When the love never ending, you're always welcome to the table